All right, let's get on with it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
Dave! 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 Ah. Now that's just hurtful.
That's the fact, Jack!
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Steel Sanctuary Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Ribeiro from SteelSanctuary.com. I'm here with Trent Ging and Bob Quinn. Guys, how's it going tonight?
Wonderful.
It's a little bit of a quiet time of the season, not much going on. A couple of news and notes here. Steelers and Bucks, we just found out, have announced a joint practice August 16th. Todd Bowles and Mike Tomlin seem to have a little bit of a friendship going there, so not totally surprising. I don't even remember the last time the Steelers had a joint practice. You guys? It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Didn't they do Buffalo 3-4 years ago or something?
Feels like that was the last one, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So this is something different. What else do we have? Let's get into George Pickens. George Pickens on social media, he was getting into it with somebody, and he claimed that he forced the trade out of Pittsburgh. My question to you guys is, anybody believe in that bullshit, or is that just George Pickens being George Pickens?
Not a chance. There's a 0% chance that he forced his way out of Pittsburgh. Like, this organization was looking to move on from him the day after the season was over, and they just weren't able to find the right partner until after the draft. I think if they could have, they would have moved him during the draft.
Yeah.
If they didn't get a second, he'd have been gone during the draft. But he didn't force anything out of town. The kid's just his own worst enemy.
Yeah,
I agree.
I disagree, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to rely on the reporters here who all said that kind of the same thing as they were going at the end of last season and going into this season. Like Caboli and Dulac and Fittipaldo, all those guys said the same thing. If you do not pay George Pickens, you cannot bring him back for 2025. So I think when it became apparent that they were not going to pay him, that's when it became, okay. So in a way, it's, yes, I forced my way out of town because you're not going to pay me and you're scared of what I'm going to do if I show up to camp and don't have a contract in hand. So in that way, I think he's accurate in saying I forced my way out of town, because frankly, if I'm going to act like a fucking idiot when I come, then oh well.
I guess indirectly, you can make the argument that the Steelers were afraid to go very long with George Pickens without a contract, and they didn't need the headache. And so technically, maybe, but I don't know. I think Trent's right. I think they were dying to move off from him from the draft, maybe even earlier than that. And Dallas just didn't give him the right offer. Zach's chirping in about Bob's camera. It's fixed now, Zach.
I had a few too many windows open.
So yeah, it's George Pickens just being George Pickens. I'm not buying it for directly him going in there and demanding to be traded, and the Steelers just kowtowing and saying, all right, we'll do the best we can. That's not the way it went down. And that's the way he meant it, I think, it's subsequently been deleted, I believe. But that's the way George Pickens rolls, right? He says something stupid on social media, then he deletes it, lets it ferment a little while and deletes it.
He's the king of taking zero accountability for anything that he does. And this is just another indication of that. Like, you didn't force the trade. Everybody in the world knew this trade was coming, except for like the Pickens diehards that were out there. But the rest of us kind of knew this was on the table from day one. Because would you have paid him? Because the way he acted, I don't know. I would have paid him. I would not have felt comfortable paying him at all. The talent's fantastic, but like
risky.
I'd have felt terrible. I mean, think about the wide receiver market right now. I mean, you're looking at putting this kid in the probably $28 million range if you paid him now.
Mm-hmm.
conservatively. So
That's
that's
that
a lot.
RC thing about Antonio Brown. Don't pay the man, because once you pay the man, that's it. And I have a feeling that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And look at it. He goes to Dallas, and CeeDee Lamb is CeeDee Lamb. But if Pickens catches 60, 70 balls, puts up 1,000, 1,200 yards, scores 6 to 8 touchdowns, somebody's going to pay him $25 to $30 in the offseason.
Oh, yeah. That's
Somebody
100%.
will. But it's going to be a desperate organization that does something like that, too. It shouldn't be ours. Like, that's where I think I come from.
Is there a coach out there that can handle him?
I think any
O'Connell in Minnesota, or
I think any good quarterback and coach combo can handle George Pickens, because if he's running a competent offense, and that's to defend him a little bit. And I said this last year before the season started. I think he asked out in private already, because kind of how he acted all last year seemed to me like a guy who's like, you know what? I'm not going to be here long term. I could give a fuck. And if he was showing up to things late, if he was, half-assing routes, how do you get out of town on a rookie contract? You got to act up. You really do. It's a risk, and he's got to produce in Dallas.
He does, because he's done harm to his value, acting like that. There's no doubt about it.
Kansas City would be the only place I could see where you have the right coach and the quarterback.
Yeah.
You have the combo. You can make an argument for Buffalo, but I don't know. McDermott doesn't seem like the guy. He's got a short fuse, I think. I don't think he would deal with the George Pickens stuff, but Josh Allen could. But I think Kansas City's probably the spot.
That's one way to keep him happy and quiet, is if you got a great quarterback feeding him the ball 8 to 10 times a game and he's scoring touch, then you probably have no problems with George Pickens, right? He just goes about his business.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go Bob.
Let's face it, Dallas is a brand. Dallas is a big brand, so
it is.
He gets to have the star power. Going back to I really, they kind of screwed up with Pickens from the beginning to me, because you could see how talented he was. And back in that rookie year, when they froze him out in Atlanta, for whatever reason, Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, just life in general on the football field that day, when they froze him out and he threw that first fit, everybody reacted so badly, not realizing here's a kid who comes home to Georgia, wants to have a huge game in front of his family, and gets pissed because they won't throw him the ball. Everybody killed him. And from then on, it the whole relationship to me went downhill. Talent-wise, there's no denying, I don't care how much you don't like Pickens, there's no denying talent only. He's a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. He's got a 5-set head, but he's a top 10 talent.
This is where I lost a lot from George Pickens. Adam from the chat brings up, hugging and mugging with those Chiefs after they lost that game. That was the final straw for me, I think. Even though I've kind of wavered back and forth about keeping George Pickens because I'm so desperate for wide receiver thing. But yeah, that was a bad look.
Not only that, but he was late to that game, coming off of an injury report where they didn't even know if they were going to play him. He was an hour late. There was multiple reports of him making them late for planes and buses, and that's a lot.
I don't know, man.
And Big Pun, hey, I beat this drum constantly. This whole Tomlin can handle special head cases and he's so respected. Amen, brother, because I do not.
I'm conflicted about that. I really am. Part of me thinks he has done a pretty good job, and we're going to get into the killer bees. That's going to be our main topic later on. We're going to review that era and how he managed that fucking shit show and tried to keep that train on the tracks. But there, you can make the argument that he maybe is too lenient on those guys and lets them get away with too much, and then they spiral out of control. I think George Pickens could have used a little bit more discipline than he got in Pittsburgh. I think you can make that argument for sure.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin is a player's coach because he lets these guys get away with a lot. I mean, even Ben Roethlisberger, he was another guy that was
yeah. Any truth to this? We have a coach on the podcast. That would be something.
We can finally get rid of Pat Meyer.
Yeah, please take Pat Meyer's spots, please. Hell, take Mike Tomlin's spot on the defensive coordinator. What were you saying, Trent, before we went to
Trent
I think
froze.
Trent froze? We're having all kinds of technical difficulties tonight.
Apparently, he had to jump into negotiations with the Steelers. For the
He's back. We got him.
Zach had the scoop.
He had to check us with his agent for a second there. Hold on. What else do we got? Let's get into the Mike Florio thing about he had a thing where he said DK Metcalf's contract may not be sitting well with some of the veterans on the Steelers team, and how he got that big new deal and he's never played it down for the Steelers, and there's one big player on the roster who's not got a contract yet in TJ Watt. Do you think this has anything to do with those negotiations? Do you think there's any hard feelings in the locker room over that trade and then subsequent contract?
I don't know. Yes, I think there is, but I don't know why there is. Because, look, everybody apparently was so upset about the George Pickens that they didn't want to manage him anymore, and the veterans were sick of him. So if you're going to go get somebody on that level, DK Metcalf, who's established and been in the league, and still he's fairly young at 27, what do you think you were going to pay? I mean, would they want to draft 2 or 3 rookies? Not a horrible idea, in my opinion. But, I mean, at that point, you got to pay what you got to pay. Look, even though he's getting $150 million, the Steelers only guaranteed 60 of it. So, I don't know. I mean, I do think I heard from a lot of people that this is going to impact. It seemed like there was a lot of buzz on the radio today that this is impacting the TJ Watt negotiation.
I mentioned you guys on the pre-pod that I think that was a Kevin Colbert philosophy, not to bring in outsiders, free agents of trades, and pay them more, make them the highest paid player on the Steelers, because he believed that caused issues in the clubhouse, and maybe he's right. I mean, it's obviously gonna affect the TJ Watt negotiations, because if he was going to give you any kind of hometown discount before that, I'm sure he's thinking, man, they took somebody off the street and paid them top dollar. I'm not giving up a dime. I've been here giving my heart, blood, sweat, and tears for this team for how many years now. He's probably pushing them for $40 million a season now because of that. It has a cascading effect on the roster. When you trade for somebody outside and you give them, that's not top of the line money, but it's close. And then you want to do a negotiation with your own players that's top of the line. That's gonna affect negotiations. It's at some point you have to do it. You got to make trades and sign free agents. You just got to be careful.
I mean, but the Steelers are pretty much the only team that have set this internal, and thankfully the GM, who missed 10 picks in a row, is no longer here to enforce that policy. But that being said, they're lagging behind the NFL. Nobody else in the NFL has any trouble paying people to come in and paying big money. Look, to me, and Trent and I were talking about this in prep, if you didn't want to insult Ben or James Harrison or Casey Hampton or Aaron Smith or James Ferrier or those guys in the 2005 to 10 Steelers, okay, I get it. But Steelers haven't won a playoff game in 8 years. Why do you care? I mean, at this point, you got to go get guys and pay them more to get them to come here. There's a Steeler tax, I firmly believe, at this point. Just like, Jaguars, when they broke the market with Christian Kirk, they had to pay a tax to get a good player. I think the Steelers are now starting to have to pay that tax, because if you're an offensive player, why in the hell would you come to the Steelers?
I've made that point over and over again. The offensive players, why would you come here with the last 5 years of what you've seen? I mean, Arthur Smith's better than Matt Canada, but we still haven't seen top-notch offense. Still,
go back to Randy Fichtner. I mean, really since Todd Haley.
Yeah, agreed. Trent's having trouble with his internet. I think he's having trouble getting on.
Gotcha. Well, we can see him moving around now.
He should be back in a minute, guys.
And
Zach
Zach's point, I don't think TJ hates DK. I just think, I'm sure it's tongue in cheek.
It's all
But
good. It's all, that helps him get more money. I don't think he hates. Zach said Jason Light DM'd him for pushback on the Trey Palmer, and he did send me the screenshot. He's hey, it happens. You get a scoop, and then the GM's trying to protect his players. That doesn't surprise me at all. Or protect himself. As far as the DK stuff goes, and TJ, at this point, just pay him the $40 million and let's get over with. I don't really love it, but.
Well, that's the other thing too. I think this is also providing some cover for TJ, because let's face it, TJ's just, I don't know anything. This is just my observation. I don't have any inside knowledge here. But if it's true, he wants $1 more than Myles Garrett, he's cutting off the Steelers options here. Because if his only contract he's going to sign is I get paid more than Myles Garrett, and Cleveland did a Cleveland thing and way overpaid him, what the fuck? I mean, come on, TJ. And look, I get JJ's point of if you sign him last offseason, you're not even paying him as much as Max Crosby. You could have put him top of the market before the season started, and he would have signed it. You would have got your hometown discount. So that's why
that's a big misstep.
We're not going to do things this way because we've never done them as Steelers. Okay, well, you didn't pay TJ, then you brought in DK, and that's the second year in a row a free agent's gotten the biggest contract in Steelers history.
Yeah. I want to go back to your Steelers tax thing, because I think that's important, because it's the signs of a bad organization now, right? You miss on your draft picks over and over and over again. Then you become desperate. You start signing and trading for big-time free agents, trading for big-time players. That upsets the locker room, and now it's a snowball. Because now you're not hitting on your draft picks. Now you're overcompensating free agency and trade. It screws up your locker room. They got to right the ship and write it quick, because this is all the earmarks of a bad organization.
Trent froze up again.
I think he did. Trent's having a hell of a time there.
Yes. So it's Steelers Sanctuary with a picture of Trent.
Zach said the organization is messing with Trent's Wi-Fi, so he can't give away the info of him becoming part of the coaching staff.
Hey, there's a good question. Do we think that the Steelers they're better than them right now? Yes, I get it. 300 yards. Yeah. Well, yes, in the playoff game, we looked terrible. And the game before. If we don't play nickel defense against the heavy set, that game maybe looks a little bit different.
They're a couple steps better than us right now, Bob.
I'm not convinced the Ravens have solved the Steeler problem. I think the Steelers solved the Ravens problem for the Ravens. And I think it could easily go back the other way.
I don't know. I just think the Ravens are a far more talented team.
I'm just thinking head-to-head. Because head-to-head, I do still think there is something there. Now, overall, the Ravens are going to win probably 12 games. The Steelers, with Aaron, may win 10 or 11. So, well, I really feel like they'll win 11 with Aaron. So,
I think it's going to be a long road. I think we need to get I think it's going to be 4 or 5 years before we can say we're better than the Ravens, because you got to draft a quarterback. You got to develop that quarterback and hope he becomes, a franchise quarterback, because the Ravens have a franchise quarterback. They have a pretty good defense. They've got, one of the best running backs in the league.
I love how a Browns fan must have snuck in here under the Patriots moniker. Look, did the Browns win a lot of titles in the All-American Football Conference and a little bit at the beginning? Let's face it, they haven't been relevant since Jim Brown's, I think, last year or second to last year. They really haven't. They've been to a few AFC championship games, and I'm sorry, but those are the Ravens. So if you're asking me, are the Ravens pretty good? Hey, great.
Yeah, that whole thing's a mess.
1999 is when the when the Browns came back in. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, has won the most games in Cleveland, or maybe Baker finally passed him.
The scary part is that line's becoming close. All of a sudden, there's a lot of similarities between the two teams right now.
Yeah.
No quarterback. one good defensive player. Team's kind of a mess. They're closer than it's closer than we want, for sure.
Yep. And Pat's is insisting he's a Patriots fan. Hey, more power to you. But those titles from the 50s and 40s, let's face it, Detroit had a world championship in the 50s. So, yes, they count. They're real things.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
The Super Bowl era is the Super Bowl era.
Yeah. Do you think Harbaugh is the reason the Ravens can't get over the hump, or is it Lamar's playoff? I think it's probably a combination of them both, to be honest. I think Lamar's more Lamar, right? I think Lamar's come up a little short in these playoff games.
And I think I don't think that he's not actually talented.
Oh, he's very talented.
He's snake bit. He's not the first quarterback who's been snake bit in the playoffs. Is Trent back?
Nope. It was worth a try, but nope.
Yeah, it's Harbaugh was a special teams coach. He cut his teeth in that, and
so was Cowher, right?
Yeah. So I think he's been smart about some of his coordinator hires. I think it was ballsy to go away from your Super Bowl winning quarterback Flacco to go with Lamar Jackson in the first place, and then all credit to him. He built the offense. I see Trent moving.
Whew. Reset the whole damn house internet.
Nice. And he's gone again.
Trent's screen showing all Steelers playoff wins since 2016. And you were a blank screen. Is he frozen?
Right?
No, you're good. Yeah, this guy keeps asking us Browns questions. I don't know if you saw Trent. They have championships back from the 40s and 50s, but we got to draw a line somewhere to modern football, and I think the Super Bowl era is a good place. I don't need to cut all the Browns championships out, but
the Brown and what he's pointing out, the Browns championships, those were not in the NFL. Those were in the, I think it was the AAFL or something like that, the All-American Football Conference. Maybe it was that. Yeah, they did win a couple in the NFL. I want to say their first year in the NFL, they won the title. But, yeah, I'm not counting the lesser conference of the NFL. That wasn't the AFL in the 60s. The 40s, that was not great competition.
All right, since we're on a little history kick here, let's get into the Killer Bee era. We wanted to talk more about that. You guys started to talk a little bit about it when I wasn't there on Monday and or last week, last Thursday. And I think it's an interesting topic. Super talented team, a lot of good players, no Super Bowl to show for it. I guess we should start out by defining the Killer Bee era. I guess it starts with Le'Veon Bell's draft, right? That's when you get Bell, Roethlisberger, and Brown, and then Martavis comes a year or two later. But that team was – I was telling the guys, I started watching the highlights of some of the playoff losses last night just to anchor myself before I went to bed. Especially that last one against Jacksonville. That offense was fucking loaded. Mm-hmm. Absolutely loaded.
Yeah.
And they couldn't stop the Jags. I mean, what's your overall? Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, I think Trent looked it up. Very interesting stat, because I know you're going to talk about the defense being the root of the problem, but maybe Trent could share with us some of the statistics from those defenses.
Yeah, I looked it up. So I think that defense got quite a bad rap. And if you're looking through, and I'm talking about like the points per game type stuff right now, that defense was no worse than 18th. Actually, if you want to look through, 7th, 10th, 11th, 18th, 14th, I mean, they were not anywhere near as bad as I think they were sold out to be. You know, and that offense, you had an offense that was no worse than 10th throughout that history.
Do you remember the 30 points a game that they kept saying they were going to average because it was so fucking good at that point?
Yeah.
I think it falls in Tomlin's lap. I really do. If you're looking for a scapegoat for that era, to me, it's Mike Tomlin.
It almost has to be. I mean, like, that team was so loaded. and they ran the ball effectively, consistently. They could throw the ball all over the yard. I mean, they had talent everywhere. The offensive line was fantastic. I mean, it was a great offensive line throughout that stretch. Like, they should not have lost.
No. Listen to the playmakers they had for the Jacksonville game. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Vance McDonald. Remember Vance McDonald? The guy was a fucking great receiving tight end. Martavis Bryant, Eli Rogers, Jesse James, Juju. I mean, it's ridiculous. How do you lose to the Jaguars with that offense and a good offensive line?
You let Blake Bortles put up 45 points.
And it wasn't just Blake Bortles. I mean, Ben fumbled for a touchdown, and I think he didn't have a pick six in that game, but he threw a couple picks in that game, and
they wasn't just slow. They got down. I want to say it was 21-0.
21-0. Battled back. I watched it last night. It's mind-boggling. They couldn't stop the run with Cam Hayward and Hargrave and all those guys. Tuitt and Vince Williams. That was a pretty good defense. That was a fucking talented defense. Getting pushed around like embarrassed.
They came out flat. They got down big, and they just could never recover. I mean,
they couldn't get a stop.
And I want to say late in the game, it was like I want to say it was like 35-31 or something like that. And then it was crucial. Jacksonville had lost all momentum, and then all of a sudden, one drive where you had to have it, you didn't have it. They went down and scored and put it out of reach. I think it was like 38-35 at that point. And when they scored that touchdown, it was like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to pull it off. And then 38-35, they go down and get the touchdown. I want to say it was a long run, too.
Adam Green brings up a great point. The ghost of Arthur Smith showed up in that game. 4th and 1. They ran a toss to Le'Veon Bell, and he came up short. They went for it, I think, on 3/4 downs and didn't get it. It was just...
That offense just felt like they were going to outscore everybody, and they came out flat because they just thought they were so good that they would win, and teams just took the air out of the ball. I mean, they ran on them a lot and just took the air out of the ball and tried to get that offense out of rhythm, and it worked. It's not all that different than what we're experiencing today, to be perfectly honest with you.
This is a good question from Big Pun. Dick LeBeau is there. I think you really have to say that this doesn't get talked about enough. I feel like Tomlin ran LeBeau out. He did not like that LeBeau got credit for the defense, and I think Tomlin had a big hand in saying goodbye, Dick LeBeau, because he wasn't done. He went to Tennessee, and he coached there. So that was kind of the, fuck you, Tomlin. You forced me out, not, hey, I sailed off into the sunset.
I think that defense has gotten a little bit predictable with Dick LeBeau at the end. The Patriots picked him apart a couple times in a row.
LeBeau would have blitzed like crazy against Jacksonville. Blake Bortles would not have beat Dick LeBeau.
No,
I probably agree with you. I probably agree with you with that.
I was not a big Keith Butler fan,
no,
especially early on.
He was a puppet. He was Mike Tomlin's puppet. He even admitted at the end. He's like, I didn't call any plays. Mike Tomlin did.
And we're still in the same situation today.
Pretty much the same situation. So it starts, I guess 2015 was the first playoff run. 2014. They lost to the Ravens 30-17. Le'Veon Bell did not play in that game. He hurt his knee early in the season. Martavis had 5 for 61. Ben threw for 334 yards and a touchdown. They came up with 2 interceptions. One thing I also noticed, Ben in this little playoff run did not play very well throughout this Killer Bee area in the playoffs. He did not play very well. I mean, there was a couple games where he was shorthanded and maybe playing injured himself, but that was one too that I noticed.
And I think part of it too was he knew going in that I've got to do it. It's all on me. Even with Le'Veon Bell, that's what I mean. Kind of some of it is okay. Your quarterback goes in who's been so clutch most of his career, and now all of a sudden I go in and I'm not clutch at the beginning. Where's the defense to pick me up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I turned the ball over. Yeah, I threw an interception. Hold them to a fucking field goal. Okay. You didn't have to give up. Like, the Cleveland game, which that's not the Cleveland, that's not the Killer B area. But the Cleveland game, everybody makes a lot about how Marquise Pouncey snapped the ball and it went over Ben's head and blah, 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 and a pick. And then all of a sudden they get down. We didn't have to give up touchdowns. You didn't have to get down 28-0 because 10-0, 12-0 looks a lot different. And if you think about, back to like the Bengals game that first year when we made the run and went to the Super Bowl in 2005-6, we were down 14-0. I mean, Ben got off to a very slow start. It did not look good. And then all of a sudden, he drives us down, he gets us a field goal. But 14-0 is not 28-0. You can come back from 2 scores. You can't come back from 4.
It's funny how the Dick LeBeau leaving is like a demarcation line to success for this team in the playoffs after that.
It really is.
After he left, they started averaging, at one point, 30, I think it's still 30 points a game they've been giving up on defense in these playoff games. They've been getting routed. I never given that much thought, but it's kind of a thing.
Almost every single playoff game that they had in that era had at least 2 turnovers, except for 1.
Yeah, I think that's why Mike Tomlin's so gun shy with turnovers.
I was just going through it. There was one game where they won. There was 1 turnover. Every other game that they played that I saw, unless they overlooked something, had at least 2 turnovers.
Yeah, multiple turnovers. Well, with the Fitz-Toussaint fumble against Denver when they were driving to take a lead and they had all the momentum. And that's when you look back at that one, that's maybe a Super Bowl team. If they can get through that game, get Antonio Brown back for, I think it was the Patriots, right? After that the Broncos ended up playing. Yeah, man.
Look, that Broncos game against Peyton Manning, I am still pissed to this day that when he fell down, that should have been the end of the play. They let him get back up and throw the ball, and that was the backbreaker. When he fell down, they didn't get the sack. He stands up, completes it for a big first down. That was it.
I forgot about that too.
That's how that game was lost. And I get it. Nobody touched him, but
I think another misconception about the Killer Bees era was that we couldn't get over the hump of New England. I think they only played New England once in the playoff.
Yeah, they ended up coming up short just before New England twice.
Yeah.
That Denver game and the Jacksonville game, the last one, that New England was waiting. I don't know if they beat New England any of those times, but I think the second time at Jacksonville that last year, I think they can win the Super Bowl that year. Easy. But they couldn't get out of their own fucking way. They had lost to Jacksonville earlier in the season. Same thing, getting run all over, and they just didn't solve it. Which is insane.
Jags have always been a problem for the Steelers. They just have.
It's kind of crazy, right? They have been going back to the Brunell days, and
I've lived in Jacksonville since the early '90s, and I remember their first year they beat the Steelers in Jacksonville. It's crazy how many times the Jaguars have beaten the Steelers, and there was a lot of times where they really shouldn't have. You go back to you want to talk about Tomlin's first year. David Garrard sucked, and he beat the Steelers in the playoff game.
Yeah.
Well, really, Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor beat them, but
Toussaint had a couple pretty good games for the Steelers, especially a couple games in the playoffs too. He just, Le'Veon Bell hurt a lot.
A practice squad third string running back. I mean, yeah, he was okay. I mean, if you're counting on your practice squad third, fourth string running back to be your guy, you got a problem. I mean, what was the guy's name when they beat the Patriots and everybody made a huge deal out of it? It was like 4 or 5 years ago with he was like a fourth string running back, and it was his one good game as a Steeler. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Everybody thought he was going to be the second coming. He was like a receiving back.
I'm drawing a blank, man.
I got nothing on that one.
I'm going to have to look this up.
The common thread through this too is injuries and suspensions. I was telling the guys before we get on, the Killer Bees only played one playoff game with all of them, and that was the Jacksonville game, which they lost. It was either in 2014, Bell hurt his knee. 2015, he tore his knee during the regular season, missed the playoffs completely. That same year in 2015 was the Bengals game where AB got the concussion, so he didn't even play in the next game. 2016, Martavis was suspended, so he didn't play. And
Jalen
then-
Samuels.
I was wondering if that's who you were talking about.
Oh, jeez.
And that's basically a third string running back.
Yeah. He just got cut from the UFL.
Did he really?
Yeah, he just
Jesus
got cut
Christ.
like yesterday, I think.
Yep. And Ben did throw a bunch of picks, Richard, in the Jags game at the
Yeah.
beginning, and then he brought him back. And
Yeah.
look, the Tebow, that's Dick LeBeau's low point. Although I understand why he was playing zero blitz, on Tebow and trying to stack the box so he couldn't run the ball. But I mean, come on, it's Demaryius Thomas. He's an All-Pro guy. You gotta double that guy.
Absolutely torched the corner off the jump.
That's my thing. I think LeBeau had kind of
I think
passed
that
his
was
prime
Ike's
at that
last
point.
year. Well, I want to say it was Ike's last year. I think he put too much.
It was.
In 2016, the Steelers lost to the Patriots 36-17. That's Bell got hurt early in that game. Didn't play. It's just it never quite came together for this team, and it's too bad because right up there with the most talented offenses they've ever had.
You think about the game before, though. Just talented offense. They beat Kansas
Six
City.
field goals. Yeah.
6 field goals.
So I'm talking about Ben did not.
Chris Boswell special.
Yeah. The 3-year stretch, he did not.
It was bad weather in that game, though. I mean, I remember.
It was cold.
It wasn't because Ben had a bad game. It was the game plan was Le'Veon left, Le'Veon right. I want to say he set the Steelers' rushing record in that game.
170 yards rushing in that game. 20 carries. Yeah. Killed it. Yeah. You forget how good you watch those games and you forget how good Le'Veon Bell was. He was ridiculous. So good.
Yeah, and saying you don't put it on LeBeau. Yes, Ike missed the tackle, but you got one guy on the field who can beat you, Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
9 in the box would have done it. If you double cover Demaryius or at least have a safety sitting there in case he gets by, then who knows? So I didn't love the zero blitz call by LeBeau there.
You think about the Steelers playoffs the last 15 years, it's painful. It's a lot of painful games.
For sure.
From the Green Bay loss in the Super Bowl right on after that, it's just been.
And that's where the mystique left. That to me is where the mystique left. That Rashard Mendenhall fumble, when that happened, we have been in a funk ever since. Because we were going to win that game. Mendenhall doesn't fumble that ball, we're going to win that game. Yeah, we got off to a bad start, but that we're going in for the go-ahead score there. We are going to win that game.
I think so too.
I think that Green Bay game was also the first time where we saw offense can beat defense. Aaron Rodgers was just better than the defense. It didn't matter who was out there.
Yep.
And that's kind of a turning point for the NFL, in my opinion, too. It's you saw that once you have the guy at quarterback, you can win against any defense.
So this is the points. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Troy, I think Troy being kind of hurt, and they attacked him. They love to say we went in with the game plan to attack Palomelo. First of all, he was fucking hurt. Second of all, yeah, you attacked him, but you attacked the 75% Palomelo.
Right.
Yeah. Since that, we'll go 2017. The Steelers' defense has given up in the playoffs 36 points, 45 points, 48 points, 42 points, 31 points, 28 points. It's atrocious. It's atrocious. And there's only one common denominator throughout that whole thing. We've had new defensive coordinators. We have new players. Plenty of talent throughout that thing. James Harrison's, has plenty of talent. Is
it T.J. Watt?
T.J. Watt's in a couple of those, too.
He's in all of them.
No. He did play the Jacksonville game, too, didn't he? Was he in the Jacksonville game?
I think he was a rookie.
Yeah,
he was a rookie. I don't know how much he played now, but you're right. He's been here through most of them. You're right.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Let's face it, Cam Hayward's only won one playoff game in his career. Because the year they made the run, he didn't play.
Yeah.
Sure.
It comes to me, it's the coaching. That's what got me started on this. I was listening to you guys, and Trent said, Colbert didn't get them a defense good enough to win, and that's what got me going. I think the defense was good enough. I just don't think it was coached right. Some of those teams don't have half those players and win playoff games. You got Cam Hayward, just that defensive line, Hayward, Tuitt, and Hargrave. I mean, come on. That alone. Joe Hayden was on a couple of those teams,
who was good, but he's kind of
pretty good cornerback.
Well, he was kind of on the downside a little bit.
Well, yeah, he wasn't Cleveland Browns Joe Hayden, but he's still a solid corner. It was.
Yeah. That's what I said. He was good. He's a lot of people romanticize Joe Hayden and they think he played like
his first year in Pittsburgh. He was pretty good. Then he kind of tailed off.
I agree, he was good, but he wasn't some all-pro.
No.
Top notch. He was early in his career, but he was very good for the Steelers, and it was a statement to how big of a mess the Steelers' cornerback position was in those years, that he really was looked upon as this great corner for the Steelers. He was good. He's not a bum, but he was good. He wasn't great, and like some people romanticize, he was great.
Big Pun says Tomlin gets more conservative every year. I think he's living the nightmares of some of those playoff games now. Yeah. The turnovers that Trent brought up, and he doesn't want any part of that. I think it's scarred him. I really do, because they lost more than one game on big fumbles, big interceptions. I think he's scarred by that.
Look at what Brian Flores did in Minnesota this year. I mean, you talk about a guy doing more with less. That defense should not have been even remotely good. They didn't have very many good players on the entire defense, and he made them look fantastic. Meanwhile, we have talented players, and we're making a guy who, Joey Porter Jr., he's got the grabby hands and this and that. This kid looks awful right now. He should not look anywhere near as bad as what he does right now because he's playing the wrong position. Minka Fitzpatrick, I mean, why is he 30 yards downfield? Like, Tomlin is just way too conservative at this point in his career. He needs to give up some control of the organization. He needs to get a DC that you're going to give you're calling the plays, you're going to set up the game plans. I'm going to be the CEO. I can be the player's coach and draw the free agents in, but like, that's the extent. That should be the extent of his involvement in this organization at this point, because he's just proven time and time again that like we're not changing anything, and the same results keep happening.
Yep.
I think the problem is he was so vastly overrated in the early part of his career when he had LeBeau and Arians, and I wouldn't say. Well, I take that.
Well, that's where he's at his peak, Bob. Right. He's the head coach, but he's got great coordinators, and he can just be, the rah-rah emotional, get these guys up for big games, and he's got the coordinators to strategize and get the plays. Ever since he lost that, it's been a downhill slide. To Trent's point, he needs to be the CEO and hire coordinators rather than trying to control everything.
But you could tell there's that definitive line of, wait a minute, Arians and LeBeau got the credit, so bye-bye Arians. And then forget who it was in between Arians and Haley. It might have been Haley right away.
It was Haley, yeah.
I think Haley was right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Art steps in and says, hey, here's Haley. And then by the time so now Haley's getting credit for the Killer Bee area, and Nick LeBeau, I'm going to phase him out. I bring in Keith Butler. As soon as I can get rid of Todd Haley, now these two no-name guys, I'm going to get all the credit.
I don't think if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Tomlin had a lot to say about the Todd Haley hiring.
No, he didn't. No,
he had basically no say at all.
Yeah, that was the last time they forced a coordinator on, and probably the best offensive coordinator they've had since they haven't had anybody since Haley left. Put it that way. It's been just a cavalcade of bad coordinators from bad to worse to now they maybe righted the ship a little bit with Arthur Smith, but still nothing great. I mean, I keep saying this to pound this point home. Matt Canada, that hiring ruined the franchise. Ruined the franchise. It cost you, I don't want to say Kenny Pickett was going to be some superstar, but he probably, with a decent coordinator, probably would have been better. Pickens, Deontay Johnson, all these guys went bananas because the offense was so bad. you cannot overstate how bad a hire that was. You just can't. It ruined the franchise.
Agreed.
Ben loves to make the point, with what's his name, Fichtner, how, hey, everybody was pissed, but we were averaging so many points per game. Ben had a lot of control over that. You almost wonder if Ben had gotten a chance to either stay with Arians or you bring in an Arians level coordinator, and you can make the argument that Haley kind of was. He's sometimes a little too cute for his own good there. But that being said, if you had given Ben, with all that talent, a coordinator who could come in there and collaborate with him, because you don't coach a great quarterback, you collaborate with a great.
That was the problem with him and Haley. They didn't get along. Haley wanted to tell him what to do, and Ben didn't want to be told. No one. I wrote this when I first started my blog, whatever, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Nobody told Ben Roethlisberger no after Haley left.
Yeah,
they hired Fichtner, and it was all Ben, and to his detriment, because you're right, he probably needed someone to collaborate with, but he didn't need a yes man like Fichtner was that would just tell, go ahead, Ben, do whatever the hell you want, because that didn't help his career towards the end either.
Which is why, if you really get into and this is why, if you really get into the Tomlin-Cowher debate, and really the Cowher-Knoll debate, okay, because Knoll was a genius. He was an X's and O's genius.
Yeah.
Didn't have necessarily great coordinators, but he didn't need great coordinators to do anything other than what he wanted them to do, because what he did worked. Then in the 80s, when it started to fall off, that's what hurt Nolan, why they had the purge. Cowher was the best coach of coaches of the three, because he had so many guys go on.
Yeah, you're right. Probably right. Yep.
Mixed success, but he got a lot of guys jobs. And I always hear, well, it's not a coach's job to build the coaching tree. Hey, guess what? If you're good at your job and you're training people to do things the way you want to do them and what you want to do works, people want to hire those people. Has Andy Reid had a great coaching tree? No.
Not really.
But you know what? He's had a fucking coaching tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing, so do you think Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or these guys that have these massive coaching trees are worried about the next guy coming up taking their job? Because that's exactly what Mike Tomlin thinks year in and year out. He does not want to hire anybody. And I had this pretty long argument with people when the Arthur Smith hire wasn't announced, but people kind of were speculating who'd come here. Everybody's like, oh, go get the Ben Johnsons or get the next young guy. If you're a coordinator, why the hell would you want to come work under Mike Tomlin? You will have no say in what happens. Yeah. And Arthur Smith's already talked about it without throwing Tomlin under the bus. But I think you can read some tea leaves here where he's like, I've had to change my offense. Well, yeah, because you're not allowed to throw over the middle of the freaking field. It takes away a large chunk of what you're able to do as an offense. So, if I'm a young, innovative guy, and a lot of these young guys, the Mike McDaniels, the Sean McVays, the Kyle Shanahans, how many times do you see all these crossing routes going every single series?
Tomlin wants no part of that.
Tomlin does not even want to see that on the field, let alone throw it. So I think that's the biggest detriment. If you're going to talk about anything Mike Tomlin should be fired for, it's that. He refuses to give up any type of authority to a coordinator and let them actually do what they're getting hired to do.
And the same on the defensive side, Trent. It's like Vic Fangio has been hired twice in the last 5 years, and he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league that would have been great here. But Tomlin would never accept a defensive coordinator with that kind of clout. Never.
No.
Because then he'd have to give up control. And that's the whole problem with this team, both sides of the ball.
Trent, I think that's an interesting point. And this is when you look at the guys with the really, creme de la creme coaching trees, you think about a guy like Marty Schottenheimer. In a lot of ways is similar to Tomlin, although at least Tomlin won something at some point. Marty never won anything big. But, man, he had some really good coaches work for him and go on to have great careers. Mike Holmgren, when you look back at it, how many guys, the Grudens and you can trace the McVay tree back through the Grudens and the Holmgrens really to the Bill Walsh stuff and like the Sid Gilman and the Eric Coryell. There are guys who just maybe they didn't win, but they took that craft seriously. They were interested in innovating. They wanted to win, but the coaches who coached for them really learned something. Noel learned under Paul Brown.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, I was going to say, these are guys who in the past, they were interested in developing coaches to you're not here to take my job. I'm here to get you a job.
Yeah. Look at Mike Shanahan and the tree he's got now. He's got coaches everywhere. There's going to be about 5 head coaches from his tree from when he was with Washington that time. Again, and we're never going to see a Steelers coordinator be a head coach again until Tomlin leaves. These guys don't have a prayer in hell. I mean, maybe there's an outside chance that Arthur Smith gets I doubt it. I really, really doubt it.
And in fairness, if you don't count Tony Dungy, who they made him fire, no one really didn't have any guys go on.
Yeah, but that was a different time too, because back then they really rely on coordinators like they do now. It wasn't as prominent as it is now.
Well, that was the Bill Walsh era. I mean, Bill Walsh kind of started. He didn't start the coaching tree area, but Bill Walsh. I mean, in the '80s when Noel was going down, Bill Walsh was coming up.
Yeah, that's the thing. He kind of in his early era wasn't as prevalent, and then towards the end, that's what cost him when he should have been hiring coordinators.
As much as I hate the Cowboys from that era, Tom Landry was great at coaching coaches.
I mean, we're good at picking coaches, but then getting them to have good. Well, Cowher did have good coordinators. You're right. Now that I think about it, he did have some pretty good coordinators.
Dom Capers, LeBeau, Wisenhunt, Chan Gailey.
Yeah,
I mean,
Chan Gailey was pretty good.
Yeah, there were some really good guys.
And I think Cowher was not to the extremes. I mean, of course, he put his fingerprint was on everything too, but he was nowhere near the extremes of Mike Tomlin in the way he ran his business. Like he let the coordinators be coordinators.
Yeah.
And he did not overrule everything. And I feel like that's the biggest thing with Tomlin is he overrules a ton of stuff. I mean, game in and game out. I mean, you can't tell me like a defensive coordinator doesn't ever want to run a blitz. And that's what Terrell Austin's sitting here doing. Like we are never blitzing anywhere near at the level he's have done in the years past. So
it'd be interesting to look up his blitz rate before he came here. What was it, Cincinnati before here? And
I think it was pretty high.
Yeah,
I think it was pretty high.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. You can't win like this. You can't win playing safe. You're not blitzing, not throwing over the middle. We've seen it. We're living it. You're not winning like this. You
can do what we do. We beat bad teams.
Yes.
And we can't beat good teams. But if you beat the bad teams, you can get, at the end of the year, you can get your 8 to 10 wins.
9-8, yep.
And get to the first round of the playoffs, but you're never going to beat anybody good. Shower actually asks an interesting question, and this is kind of to the broader point, is do we think DK will regret coming here after 1 year? If Aaron Rodgers ain't the quarterback?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. 100%. If it's Mason Rudolph or, again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but Kirk Cousins is as likely as anyone if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come here. Yeah, he's going to regret coming in. Well, this is what happens when you do a money grab. You take that risk. If you don't, if money's the only thing you care about, then don't bitch. You knew the situation you were getting into.
And I think it was Steeler Reg, who's a pretty decent, a pretty big Steelers account on X, pointed out that everybody who thinks that Metcalf is some huge upgrade over George Pickens, they are pretty much basically the same guy. Maybe Metcalf is, as far as on the field, you actually look back, Metcalf, as good as he is, he's 1,000 yards, 60, 70 catch guy. That's what he is.
I think he could be more consistent, more of a route tree. I don't know.
I think we force fed George a lot too to get him to the numbers that he got to, and you're going to see the same thing with DK this season. If we don't bring anybody in, he's going to get force fed the same as what GP did. I think DK is a much more complete receiver, though. He can run a lot more of the route tree than George can. George is still very raw in the way that he approaches things, and I think it's a work ethic thing with the two of them. But hands wise, I would actually say George is probably better.
Yeah,
DK will drop more balls, but I think DK overall is still a better receiver.
And in fairness to George versus DK, that whole in-breaking stuff, because DK does run over, it catches more balls over the middle of the field. George didn't catch balls over the middle of the field because nobody fucking threw it over the middle of the field.
It keeps coming back to Tomlin and his philosophy. All the complaints, we start in one area and we gradually work our way back to the problem. It's Mike Tomlin. I'm sorry, it just is. And I stick up for Mike Tomlin a lot because I think he is a top 8-9 coach in this league. I think he could be a top 5 coach if he would do the coordinator thing and be the CEO. He could have more Super Bowls by now. He'd be I think he already is pretty much a Hall of Fame lock, but he could have won so many more playoff games. So many more.
I'm going to say something that's going to, and I do not want to spark the obvious debate. If Deion Sanders was the coach of the Steelers, we'd be a lot better off.
You've made this point, and at first I scoffed, but then when I think about it, you're probably right, because he is the CEO guy. He'll hire 2 coordinators. He's got just as much pull with the players as Mike Tomlin, if not more.
Right.
Everyone loves Deion Sanders. He's
also never won anywhere.
Yeah. If he hired 2 great coordinators though, and just
that's not serious football though. I mean, it's not high end.
You're gonna spark that debate that we had forever. That Big 12.
That's who hired him though. I mean, and let's face it, he was 4-8 his first year. He was 8-4 his second year. We don't know where he's going to go from here. So
it's going down.
He was bet. I don't think it's going down. I think he will. Deion is a smart guy. He just is. He's a smart football guy who knows what he doesn't know. That's what I like about him.
When you made that point before, I tend to agree with you on that he'll hire himself good people and not. He definitely won't micromanage like Mike Tomlin. That's not his style.
Yeah, I agree with that.
His hires would be key though.
The really interesting thing is if his next quarterback is better than his son, because if what you think about
that won't say much
is true, now all of a sudden the next guy is better than Shador and they win 2 more games. Let's say they go 10-2. Hey, now, maybe we should have just taken Shador as a route to get Deion.
I mean, if the Steelers called for Deion, he'd come.
I don't think so. I think he wants the Dallas job.
You might be right on that. I think he is angling for the Dallas job.
To be honest with you, who I think the job he truly desperately wants is Florida State. I think he really wants to go home to Florida State.
I can see that. Way more money. There'd be way more money coming in at Florida State too than Colorado.
Yeah.
He's
a draw. He'll win because players want to play for him. For sure. That name, even though he hasn't played in forever, people still know the Deion name and the prime time and all that stuff.
Big Pun brings up an interesting name. This is the guy who I think should be the offensive coordinator of the Steelers. He's never going to get a head coaching job in the NFL again, but I think somebody who has the pull, and Tomlin would have the pull. He could give the job to Gruden. They're friends. But if that happened and Gruden's standing on the sideline and all of a sudden the Steelers offense goes to top 5, you start winning playoff games, who's going to get the credit?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how I feel about Gruden.
Would the NFL welcome him back?
I'm hearing rumblings on some of the podcasts I listen to that he's making his way back. He's working for NFL Network or ESPN now. So he's slowly hedging his way back into the good graces. He's going to be a coach. He's going to be a coach again. I don't know if it's offensive coordinator or a head coach, but he'll be back.
He consulted with like 8 teams this offseason.
Yeah. I think he was definitely in the wrong in a lot of what he did, but like that was an NFL hit piece.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That was so targeted. It was ridiculous.
100%. And the Bobby Slowick thing, you know what?
That's just Trent's point earlier. Those guys don't want to coach here.
Well, really, really good 2 years ago. Got himself fired last year. So, yeah, I would like to see it. If I don't know that I want him as the offensive coordinator. I think Kubiak's kid probably would have been my first choice. Slowick was, a little flavor of the month. I think Clint Kubiak has a little better track record, but that's another guy who, if he comes in, I'm not running. Mike, don't talk to me about any bullshit about not throwing over the middle of the field or doing whatever. And Kubiak, like Arthur Smith, would be a running, maybe not to the extent of Arthur Smith, but he would have a lot of good run concepts.
These guys don't want to coach for Tomlin. Trent's right. Trent's 100% right. And as far as Dresden bringing up Nico, I'm not even going to try his last name. That guy just suicided his career.
Oh, yeah.
He may not recover from this. He might be a 6th-round pick. Going to UCLA not to get too far on a tangent, but going from Tennessee to UCLA is a monumentally stupid move.
Well,
anyone who watched UCLA last year, it's a good thing this kid can run because you're going to be running for your life every snap.
And that Tennessee coach pretty much hands you offense on a silver platter. I mean, offense is just there for him.
But if he performs at UCLA, he could actually help his draft stock because Tennessee, not to the extent of a Lane Kiffin offense, but that Tennessee offense is very user-friendly, so their quarterbacks have not necessarily translated.
That kid he was already a buzz. All he had to do was be semi-successful. He would have been a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Not top 5, I don't think. I think he would have been a first rounder, but not a top 5.
He was.
I think he was in that conversation.
He was the rage. Everyone was talking about him. If he had a good season at Tennessee.
Yeah, but he would have paid like the Lane Kiffin. He would have paid the coordinator.
I don't know about that. I don't think it's as prevalent for Tennessee. And plus, he's an athlete, runs, throws. People are drooling over him. And now UCLA,
he's got tremendous tools. I mean, tremendous tools.
Yeah, but he's going to get killed at UCLA.
So did Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker.
UCLA's in the
but those guys, they weren't even accurate. This kid's accurate. He can throw. He can read defenses a lot better than those guys could. He can throw. I mean, Milton was just an 80-yard bomb.
I'll push back on Hooker. Hooker was a really good college quarterback. He doesn't get hurt. He's a first-round pick.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Hendon Hooker.
Yeah.
He was also in his 6th year. It's another one of those old guys who dominated once they got into their last year. I know I've never been a fan. This kid's young, accurate. He can run, he can throw. But I agree with Dave. This UCLA thing's just he's tanking his career.
Killed it. Shower curtains all in for John Gruden. I think we're stuck with Arthur Smith for the foreseeable future, guys. We can dream about other offensive coordinators all we want. He's got to slightly improve every year, and he's just enough to keep his job, unless somebody tries to hire him.
You got a guy like you got a guy who's probably just drooling to be involved with the Steelers, Mike McCarthy, who's sitting at home right now.
It's another name, Pittsburgh guy. They love hiring their Pittsburgh guys.
They do,
right? I don't know how well that would play with Aaron Rodgers, but
I don't think it would actually. I don't think it would at all. But
I almost wonder if Tomlin can squeak out 11 wins and pass Noel if McCarthy isn't the coach in waiting.
I don't think I'd like that.
I'd go young.
I don't like Mike
I'd
McCarthy
go young
either.
But. I think he's an okay coach, but I'm with Trent. I want somebody young, which is probably that's what the Steelers do. They go get some young guy that no one's heard of.
He did win 12 games with Dallas 3 years in a row, though.
He did. He's a decent coach. How old is he now? Late 50s?
Got to be mid to late 50s.
Yeah, I need somebody younger. I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves because Mike Tomlin's not going anywhere anytime soon.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with it. I mean, look, if Aaron comes in and it works, they'll probably get another year to do whatever the fuck they want. The dream scenario for anybody who hates Aaron Rodgers in the chat, the dream scenario is to bring Aaron in and us suck. Because that will force real change. That will force real change. Because you have no excuse. You brought in a Hall of Fame quarterback and you won 4 games, Mike. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's also the only way the offense is going to change is because Aaron's going to do the same shit Ben did and start drawing plays in the dirt.
Yeah.
Which is what I listen to Arthur Smith.
As soon as his name became a slight possibility, that was my biggest selling point with Aaron Rodgers. At some point, on 3rd and 7, he's going to say, no, we're not fucking running a toss play. We're going to run a play. This is the play we're going to run. Mm-hmm. And I mean, come to find out, some of those might have been audibles by
Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Russell Wilson, because he didn't want to face the offense. But I don't know. I hate to we're doom and gloom a lot in this podcast, but it's hard. It's hard to be positive when you see this.
Till the games start and Aaron's wearing number whatever. At this point, if the Steelers really have a gripe against Terry Bradshaw,
I know we're going with this right away. Give him 12 just to fuck with
Terry. Just to fuck with Terry.
That's so wrong.
Oh my!
Because if they said to Art, "Hey, you going to retire Terry's number?" Why would we retire Aaron Rodgers' number?
That's terrible.
And then he comes on and say, "Hey, thanks for coming to the funeral, Terry."
Oh man, there's definitely grudges there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That would never happen. Art's too classy for that. They wouldn't want to show Bradshaw up for that. But I admit it'd be pretty funny.
That would be funny.
All right, before we go, it's June 2nd, right? June 2nd. How do we feel? Do we think Aaron Rodgers is coming here? Do you feel any differently?
Pretty positive.
You're pretty positive?
I'm
See,
pretty
getting more
positive he's
negative
still
by the
coming.
day.
I feel like mandatory minicamp, he will be there.
Which is when? Do we have a date on that?
10th.
Huh?
The 10th.
The 10th? So you think he'll be signed by June 10th?
A week from tomorrow. I think he's going to be in mandatory minicamp.
I don't think so.
I think at the very worst, he's going to sign during mandatory minicamp and just make an appearance and say, "Okay, I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. Hey, DK. Hey, Calvin. Hey, Roman. Hey, Alan Lazard. I need you."
Oh.
Yeah, I think there's too many signs still pointing in the direction of him signing at this point. Like, I don't know. I still think I don't know if it was credible, but I saw a rumor that he was like communicating with some of the Steelers receivers about coming out to California to throw with them.
Yeah.
How about you come to Pittsburgh and throw with them? It's not a fucking contract. I mean, what are we doing? Come out to California and throw with me? It's fucking
He wants that sunshine. We get too much bad weather here.
They're about to be off for a month. And hey, that's not unprecedented for the Steelers. I mean, God rest his soul. I mean, everybody went down to Florida to throw oh my God, I can't believe it.
Dwayne Haskins.
Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. Everybody went down to throw with him.
But he was already on a team.
But
he wasn't this is insane. This is really.
You know what? That's another one, kind of a what if. Does Haskins beat out Kenny?
I don't want to talk ill of the dead, but I don't think it's going to be very good, Bob.
I don't know if he was going to be very good, but I think he was better than Pickett and Trubisky.
He had maturity issues, major maturity issues. In fact, if he would have grown up, he had talent.
He did have talent.
He had a ton of talent.
Everybody around the organization really liked him. They felt like he really did the work when he got there.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to have seen what happens, but it's one of the things we'll never know. It's kind of like Shazier. What would he have been if he had, honestly, killer bees aside, if Shazier doesn't get hurt in that run up to the Jacksonville game, I think that we are telling a different story. I don't know.
Tomlin can't fuck that up. Even Tomlin can't fuck that talent up because it was.
I don't know that we go to the Super Bowl, but I don't know that we.
The Patriots will linger in there in New England, which never seemed to, have solved that Tom Brady issue till way at the end.
Well,
Big Pun, I want to say that we had already drafted Pickett.
I think we had already drafted Pickett because they all three went down there together.
Yeah,
Trubisky, Pickett, and Dwayne were all three down there.
Yeah, you guys are right.
Yeah, so I mean.
Yeah. To bring it all full circle, that Killer Bee team was the biggest waste of talent. I think it's Steelers history for sure.
Steelers history, yeah, I would.
Even you can look at league history. That offense, like Vance McDonald, Juju was a rookie on that team. They still had Martavis, Le'Veon Bell. I mean, and the offensive line was good. And you flip over to the defense, like we said, it's Tuitt, it's Hargrave, it's Hayward, man. How do you not? Do you remember seeing the All-Pro teams in those 3-4 years? There was like 10, 12 Steelers every year in the All-Pro game.
Yeah.
Pro Bowl.
We look at, as far as look at those Cowboy teams when they fired Jimmy Johnson, even though they won a Super Bowl with Barry Switzer. Those were some they had some really good teams, but Switzer couldn't coach, and you figured it out by the second year. Those late 90s Cowboys probably should have won another 1 or 2 Super Bowls.
I mean, we killed Colbert, and probably rightfully so at the end, missing first-round picks. But just look at that roster, that Jacksonville game. He did everything humanly possible to get Mike Tomlin the Super Bowl, including making a great trade for Vance McDonald and signing Joe Hayden A couple other little things. They had D'Angelo Russell at one point, D'Angelo Williams, I'm sorry, at one point as a combination with Le'Veon Bell in that era.
Love D'Angelo Williams. One of my
Everything a general manager could have done.
Yeah.
To put a championship team on the field, and they couldn't get it done.
Which, by the way, they're not a sponsor, but they should be. CBS. If you've never seen the Amazing Race with D'Angelo Williams, and I forget who it was, but he was a teammate. I want to say he was a Steeler teammate too. Watch that season. It's very.
I remember that. Yeah. All right, guys. On that note, we should call it a podcast here. Again, the chat was fantastic. Again, guys, subscribe. That's hugely important to us. We got an exciting announcement for our next podcast. We're going to have a sponsor who's got a great fantasy football angle to his thing. You guys stay tuned for that. It's a lot of fun. Until next time, thanks for listening to Steel Sanctuary Podcast.
See ya.
But he's not weird or anything, is he?
No, he's totally normal.
I think you should be working at the snack bar.
You better relax, Bob.
I mean, normal for us.
All right, let's go.
Now you've had enough.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Okay, crazy guy. I'm gonna go home now.